and I'll let you take it away.
All right, guys, good to be here. Good morning for those of you wherever you are. Most of you probably it's morning. A few of you in Europe, maybe it's afternoon. Uh, Brandon, can you guys see the presentation?
Yeah, it looks great.
All right, perfect. All right, well, I'm gonna be talking about something that most of you guys probably have not heard about, and it's going to be a new space because the title of the presentation is really kind of a slap on the self-directed IRAs, and there's a reason because self-directed IRAs are going to hurt you if you're doing multifamily stuff, and since this is a multifamily conference, you guys are part of multifamily nation. It's really important that you know how to not lose a third of your money if you invest. So we're going to get into that, but before we do, let me just introduce myself, give you a little background and so you know who's talking to you right now. Appreciate the great intro and for being here. Just real quickly, I am Damion. This is the EQRP, and the reason I'm doing this is because my mission is to free 1 million people from financial shackles, including you watching this. I mean, you're not sitting there, well, maybe you are waiting for football, but right now, y'all are spending your Saturday morning learning how to create some freedom and using some multifamily investing for that. So I'm going to be a part of that, giving you a new tool that maybe either you use or potentially you help other people use so that y'all can become free. And I mean, that's really the point of all this stuff. It's not just information for more information. It's really information that you can use because knowledge is not power. You guys have heard that before, I'm sure. Applied, executed information that's where the power is. So we're going to get into that a little bit and how you can execute on this. I wrote a book. One of the books I wrote was called the QRP book, and it's available on Amazon. I wrote this book really because there's a lot of confusion around this space. The QRP stands for Qualified Retirement Plans. Many of you know Tom Wheelwright, the Rich Dad Advisor, and he and I laughed about this because QRP just stands for all the 401ks and the 457s and the IRAs, all that stuff. So I wrote this book to really help simplify what it is out there with these accounts, because the number that you heard earlier, 25 trillion reasons, that's how many dollars are sitting in these accounts. A lot of you guys have 401ks, 457s, and you have this money sort of sitting there dead. And you're going, all right, well, that's cool, but I don't want it in the stock market. I want to put it in some doors. I want to make sure that it's working for me, that I have control. And the QRPs really do have that option, but you're not really told about it. You're told, hey, you're supposed to give your money to a financial advisor and keep it in a mutual fund. Well, I'm going to help you get checkbook control, not with the self-directed IRA, because that's actually incredibly dangerous if you're investing in multifamily. I'm going to give you a new tool, and I'm going to clarify some of the things about this tool that some of the myths and misnomers, things that people are confused about. So we're going to get into that. This is really what I want to focus on. The reason that retirement accounts are important because they're set up to avoid this character, the IRS. And I know we're right now where there's a bit of a shutdown, and so maybe some of these folks are sitting in their beds right now going, I'm glad there's a shutdown. I don't have to go to work. But they are going to come back to work. They're going to be back, and they're going to be looking at your stuff, and they're going to be saying, how much can we take from you? And it's not a little number. It's a lot. I mean, 70% is really how much we're talking about here over your life. So this is going to give you an option to really reduce that down to zero. Zero is a better number in my opinion. I mean, unless you want to donate to the government, that's cool, go do it. But I don't think you should be told you have to. And in fact, you don't have to if you use better information. So we're gonna get into the tool on how to use that and how to make that 70 go to zero. So if we're going to do this, if we're going to do something different, we have to start thinking different. We have to take those belief systems from years of people telling us what we're supposed to do, what we should do, and really start thinking maybe there's something else. And when we start thinking different, it allows us to invest different. That's what it's all about. And it's really so that we're not part of the zombie apocalypse, just walking, tiptoeing safely to death's door with our mutual fund, hoping it doesn't work. Actually hoping it does work. But the reality is it's not going to work. And we're gonna make sure it works. We're gonna give you some tools, and that's what you guys have been doing here for the last couple of days is really getting some different tools and some different ideas. One of my good friends, Lane, is in the other room right now talking about passive income while you're still working. I know a lot of you guys are out there working right now and going, I want to have freedom. I want to do something different. So these are all great resources for y'all to be doing that, and this is going to give you the firepower because there's time and there's money. This is the money piece. This is how you're tapping into the money that you need so you can invest differently. So let's get into the EQRP and really what it's all about. I want to share some things about it so that y'all are really clear. First off, the EQRP stands for Enhanced Qualified Retirement Plan. It's something that we created. It's part of the code. It's IRS approved, and it really is the Ferrari of 401ks. I mean, the truth is there's a lot of options. People often say, well, there's a lot of people that are doing like self-directed IRAs and solo 401ks. There's all this stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of options. And, if you want a hamburger, you can go to a lot of generic places, or you can go to the place that actually really does a great job. And it's the top hamburger. And there's an argument. I'm sure some people say it's Whataburger. Some people say it's In-N-Out. Red Robin, I have no idea. But it's about your personal preference. Do you want to work with the best? Do you want to have the highest quality ingredients? That's really what these retirement plans are all about. It's the ingredients, and it's the people that are putting them together and supporting them. And so you can decide, do you want to go have street food, or do you want to go into a nice restaurant where people are going to take care of you and you're not going to get, salmonella poisoning or something. So that's what this is. This is the best in industry. It allows you to truly have all of your money in your hands so that you can control it. You think of it as an IRA on steroids. So, and without the consequences of having a heart attack. It's truly giving you power and control, and it juices everything about what you're going to do. Primarily in real estate, it's about leverage. And with IRAs, we're going to get into why that leverage will literally put you on an operating table and end up basically killing you because it's going to steal all your money. And that is a huge problem with the EQRP. That is not going to happen. You're not going to the OR. So you're asking yourself, like, why have I not heard of this? And if you've been on some podcasts and listened to those, you probably heard somebody asking me about this. And here's the deal. It's because of Wall Street. This character right here. You guys have probably seen this movie, and it's these guys and gals that are there to tell you they're going to take care of you. They're going to coddle you. They're going to charge you fees to nurture your stuff right out of your wallet. Like it's all about fees. It's about Wall Street having that 25 trillion and peeling off a couple of percent of it every year. And no matter what happens, they always take that. So they don't want you to have control, because if you have control of your money, guess what they don't have? Control of your money. So when that happens, if they lose control, they lose those fees. Those people can't afford their Ferraris and their mansions in Long Island. And this is the reason that we really haven't heard about these options. And the other one is with self-directed IRAs, there's also a custodian fee. I mean, it's all about fees. It's called AUM, assets under management. Whether it's a custodian holding your money or whether it's a Wall Street, basically a custodian, they're all holding your stuff. They're all charging fees, and they all control your stuff. You really don't have control. That's what the EQRP is all about. It's about you having control. I personally believe that it's about self-responsibility, and that with the Wall Street game and with the custodian game, it's about abdicating responsibility. It's like, hey, I'm too stupid. And that's what they tell you. You're too stupid. So you go, okay, well, I better give my money to somebody else, and they're smarter than me. I don't believe that. I believe that you're smart enough to go out and make the best decision for you, because truly, who's going to care about your money more than you? Nobody. There isn't a single person that's going to care about it and nurture it and protect it better than you are. So it's kind of like being the mama bear. You got to be ferociously dedicated to protecting what you love. And that's what this is. I mean, you better love your money or it's going to go away. And that's just reality. Okay, so let's talk about some of the EQRP benefits. Really, why you want this, and for most of you, this is going to be a great tool to add into your arsenal of things that you have at your disposal. First off, you have real checkbook control. You're really going to be in charge. You are the trustee of your plan, and the EQRP is a trust. So it's a retirement savings trust according to the IRS, and you're going to have a checkbook. So you basically write your check. If you have a deal and you want to fund it, go write the check. How long does that take? 15 seconds. Super fast. Sometimes I've had people come in and they'll say, yeah, I have a self-directed IRA and I missed out on some deals. I had somebody doing a syndication, and they said, we're going to close this in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It happens all the time. Seems like plenty of time. And then you try to get the money from a custodian, and a month goes by and you finally get a check, and guess what? Deal's closed. You're out of luck. You lost the opportunity. That is a huge problem when you don't have the speed, because you're going to miss out on the deals. So this is where you want to make sure that you don't have that delay, and having actual checkbook control is where that changes, where you can write the check, you can wire the funds, you can do things when you see an opportunity, and you're not going to miss out. Another thing that's really important, you have all the options. A lot of retirement accounts, in fact, almost all of them, if you have a work 401k, for example, it's very limited. They say, hey, here's the 5 mutual funds. It's international funds, bonds, domestic, blue cap, small cap, all crap, all cap. It's junk, and that's all you get. So at best, you have cash. In my opinion, there's a cycle that's going on, and being stuck in equities and stocks right now is really, really, really dangerous. So having an option outside of that is important. Most people, most of your plans, if you're a firefighter, you got a 457, you're stuck. And this unsticks you. Like, you're literally going to have options for everything. We're going to go into some of those options. In addition to multifamily, in addition to real estate, there's a lot of stuff you can do. This is going to give you all that power. There's also no transaction fees. Some of you guys have told me that you made money with your self-directed IRAs and you literally spent as much in fees. So you were at zero. All this work, all this effort, you did good. You made the right choices for investments, and then you lost the money from fees. And I mean, it's kind of a pointless effort. You might as well just not do anything. So this is going to take all those transaction fees away. Zero transaction fees. None at all. That speed is key. I want to hammer on that because you guys really need to be able to execute. Everything is going faster now than it's ever gone before in terms of investment, placement. Just deals are happening at the speed of light. So if you can't react, if you can't invest now, you're basically going to lose. You're going to be out of the game. Here's something that's really, really cool. And it's sort of a crazy story. Back in 2008, when I got hurt really bad in the real estate world, I happened to have had a American Express Black Card. And it for those of you who have heard of this, it's basically the celebrity card. And so you get this card and you can spend as much as you want. And so I thought, this is great. I can basically buy a jet or a Ferrari or whatever I want. I can do everything under the sun because there's no limit. Well, that was all well and good until I went to Costco in the fall of 2008, right before the meltdown, and American Express decided that real estate, in my case, doing the houses, my industry, was not something that they wanted to give a lot of credit lines to. And they basically froze my account as is. So I couldn't buy my stuff. It happened to be a big pallet of toilet paper at Costco, and I couldn't check out. Well, that's a huge problem when you're relying on a credit line that just all of a sudden stops. It wasn't because I was defaulting. There was nothing wrong except I was tagged inside of an industry. Well, it becomes very problematic if your life revolves around credit lines. And for most of us, we do rely on those. If all of your credit lines are shut off, it becomes a big, big issue. This is a great, cool thing here is that you have a $50,000 credit line baked into your EQRP. You can literally use yourself as a line of credit. Now, this isn't like life insurance. It's totally different. You just write yourself a check. Like it's that fast. You go, you know what? I want $50,000 today. I want to go do something with it. This isn't for you investing. You can invest all your EQRP money. I'm talking about if you want to put some money in your personal bank account and you've got your retirement pile over here and you say, you know what? I know people will take this and they'll go buy a car and then they'll basically pay their retirement account back instead of paying a bank back. Pretty good way to do it where you're actually paying the interest to yourself. And so you can do that. Or let's just say, hey, you know what? You got crunched, you got pinched, and you don't have enough money for your float, for your monthly bills. No problem. Write yourself a check for $5,000 or $10,000. As long as you've got a pile of money sitting in your retirement account, you've got access to some great credit that is available 24/7 every day of the year. And you don't have to get somebody's approval or blessing. I mean, you don't need to go like the little orphan Oliver and say, hey, may I have some more? Like that's crazy. That doesn't have to happen. This is an option for you here that you don't have in an IRA. That's a huge difference. If you just swapped an IRA for an EQRP, all of a sudden you've got $50,000 that you can use for anything that you decided was important. You don't need somebody else telling you what's important. So big, powerful benefits. Nice to have money when you need it. It's really hard to get it when you need it if you don't already have it lined up. This lines it up. And then the big, big, big deal here is mega returns with debt. Now, real estate is powerful. When I first started, I remember getting a lot of houses and I was buying them at 95, sometimes 100% leverage. Basically just somebody else's money. It's OPM up the wazoo. This is like Danny DeVito in that movie, OPM. I mean, it was crazy how much wealth could be created. And the bank said, hey, just pay us back. We don't want any of the returns. We just want our money back. Well, shoot, that's what's available here. The problem is if you use the wrong vehicle, you lose a crap load of your money because of the debt. So it's kind of the double-edged sword stabs you. And so we're gonna figure out how to get around that and make sure that does not happen. Head to head, it's really important for you guys to know the differences between the self-directed IRAs and the EQRP. With self-directed IRAs, there's always a permission thing. Now, not this group. I mean, you guys are here because you're willing to take hold, take the reins. But there are a lot of people that say, I don't want to have control. Like I need somebody else to do it. Well, you know what? This isn't for you. But you're not watching this because you want to hand off your stuff to somebody else and just like let loose. You guys are here because you want to take control. So with a self-directed IRA, you really don't have total control. You're basically at the whim. You're subject to somebody telling you what you can and can't do, when you can do it, when you can do whatever you want to do with your money. That's, to me, that's BS. They are going to charge you a whole bunch of fees for that opportunity to be told what to do. I mean, it's like it's like as a kid, instead of being told what to do and getting an allowance, if you do what you're told, your parents say, you're going to pay us an allowance and we're going to tell you what to do. That seems a little off, right? That's crazy. They also tell you, here's a little pile of what you can do, and we don't like that thing over there. We don't understand it, or we don't feel comfortable with it. So you get somebody that doesn't really spend time learning about what you're doing, and they don't want to they don't want to let you do your deal. So you can't really control your money. Big problem. If you want to do a deal that makes sense and that it's allowed, and you have some random person saying, nah, we're not going to let you do it, or they take so long figuring it out, you lose the deal. That's the slow part. Now, on the other side, you've got the EQRP. You actually have total control in your hands, your money. When it's set up, there is a flat fee to set it up and a flat fee for all of everything, all the compliance, all the support, all the transactions in the world. It's limited, it's flat, it's transparent. Some of you guys are going to be doing things like notes in addition to your multifamily. Those can create a lot of transactions. And if you're paying $25 or $50 every time to a custodian for a note payment, like you get a bunch of these things, you're going to be like the one client of mine that was making zero after all of the fees. I mean, that's crazy and that's stupid. So here's a better way. No fees for any of the transactions. You truly have unlimited choices. So you can invest in all sorts of things. Here's how it works. The IRS says, here are the 15 things that you can't do. Like you can't invest in wine. You can't invest in rugs or collectible cars. Like right now, Barrett Jackson is going on here in Arizona. So you can't take your retirement account and go buy a collectible Corvette. All right, that's not allowed. You can't invest with certain people, like your spouse or your kids or your grandparents or parents. There's some limited number of people you can't invest in with. You can't invest in a certain number of collectible things, but truly, you can invest in almost anything else. And it is wicked fast. I mean, we're talking super fast. So when you want to do a deal, you have an opportunity. Sometimes you might have a matter of days to do something. You can write that check and get it done. All right. So I'm going to jump over to a question. Jay asks, is this the same thing as a solo 401k? No. All QRPs are under the same code. They're part of the 401 code. An EQRP is different than a solo 401k. A solo 401k is like a solo K. There's a lot of basically same type of trusts. It's a cookie cutter, and they're all basically the same. The EQRP adds in a layer of complexity and liability protection that's not available with a standard 401k or a solo 401k. Here's something that's really important, you guys. A solo 401k is not covered the same way that a big 401k, like a company with a bunch of employees, is with ERISA. ERISA is what started 401ks back in the 70s, early 70s. It has incredibly strong protections. So if you get sued or you go bankrupt, there are protections within the system because of ERISA that protect your money. That changes when you have one person in a plan and it's not part of a company plan with a lot of people. So it's something that really is important for you to understand. Your stuff is subject to potential litigation, liability. You could get crushed, and it's really up to a court. Every state's different. The reality is this is where an asset protection attorney should be involved in the conversation and help you make sure that the protection is there. Something like an EQRP helps protect you inside the plan, and then you need competent professionals, both accountants and attorneys, that add to your team to help you. Just be aware that individual 401ks by themselves are not covered by ERISA the way that big company plans are. That's a huge distinction that most people don't even know about. Okay, let's go to some of your choices. Some of the things that I've seen people do, I mean, a big one is the syndications. I mean, this is prime time right now to be looking at syndications, apartments. And one of the reasons is because of this thing called UDFI. We're going to get into that in a second. The syndications are amazing because they're passive, and that's what your retirement accounts should really be. If you're going to do a flip, you want to have somebody else doing it. Like you literally want to say, I'm going to fund that flip, and then you're going to be the passive investor. This is not meant to be a job, meaning like it's not meant to have a pile of cash where you operate a business out of it. There is something that some of you guys have heard about, and Tom Wheelwright and I talk about this, about the whole Robs thing. And basically what that means is that there's this idea that you can take your money and you can fund your own company, and then you can go invest. And I'm talking about your retirement money is funding a company that you're running, and you're the president of this thing, and you're doing this whole deal. And people are saying, yeah, and you can take a reasonable salary. It's BS. I mean, it is literally a disqualified deal, and the IRS is scrutinizing these things. So it's meant to be a passive. It's a tool for passive investments. That's why syndications are so great. Here's one caveat that's important for y'all to know. If you're going to put a syndication to get, if you're the sponsor, if you're putting it together, you cannot take your retirement account and invest in the syndication that you're putting together. There's no attorney in the country that I know of that would say this is okay. So I think some people have done that, and I would not do that. So I want to try to keep you guys safe and protected from getting a little too creative. I'm all about creativity, but I don't want to have the IRS coming knocking on my door. That's already happened years ago, and it's not a fun thing, I can tell you. It's not cool. The other things people are doing, a lot of people are doing stuff outside the U.S., and absolutely totally okay. You can invest in coffee farms, cacao farms. If you want to buy an island, or you want to have something outside of the U.S. to diversify, that's an option. Really easy to do. You literally just make sure that your retirement account goes and buys it. I mean, it's very, very straightforward. And private lending, if you're the bank, I mean, you think about all the times we've paid interest to the bank and how painful that is. It's not fun. You get an interest payment. Well, what if you could be the bank and you could be the lender? You're loaning money out and somebody's paying you. It's a pretty good thing to be. I mean, there's a reason that all these businesses, all these banks have the biggest buildings. It's like insurance companies and banks. You look at any city, and there's like big, tall buildings, and there's bank, because it's about interest. It's about payments. So you can kind of flip that by being the one that's lending money out. You can lend money out to people that are doing real estate stuff. Very safe. If you vet your deal correctly, you get to be the bank. You don't have to be actively involved. It's very good. It's very passive. And with the EQRP, it's wonderful because you're not paying transaction fees every time you collect a payment. So if you make $50 in interest and you pay $45 or $50 fee to a custodian, that's pretty lame. What's the point? So this gives you a way to actually keep all that interest. And one of the things that I love is the gold and silver. You can take your retirement account, your EQRP, and physically buy gold and silver, physically hold that gold and silver as the trustee. Can't do that with an IRA. Now, I know that there are some people, and mostly I think it's unscrupulous gold and silver dealers that are out there, and they will tell you, oh yeah, you can use your IRA, and you can be the one that holds it. I can show you in the IRS code where it says you cannot do that. It has to be a depository. It's in the code. So that's a problem if you're doing it. Now, how do you fix it? You transfer your assets over to an EQRP. As the trustee, you are the fiduciary, meaning you're responsible for your assets and what to do to protect those. So this gives you the option to physically hold gold and silver, and you can do it with pre-tax money. I mean, that's pretty awesome to be able to buy kind of at a 30 or 40% discount with pre-tax money, physical gold and silver. So if you want to hedge against the currency, I think that's a smart idea. And there's a way to do it with pre-tax money using the EQRP. Awesome opportunity. All right, this is ultimately what we're trying to get to. You guys are trying to figure out why there's a 0 on the screen. All right, there's a 0 because it's the number we're shooting for, to get to 0 in tax. Ultimately, if you can have 0 in tax, then you have a lot more choices. If you have more choices, it's called freedom, and that's really why we're doing this. I don't think anybody's really excited about just collecting a bunch of wood and doors and cement and having tenants. And I mean, that's not like the most ideal life vision. It's because that creates something else. It creates income, it creates cash flow. And what we want to do is make sure the cash flow stays with us and doesn't go to the coffers of the government. We're going to get to 0, and we're going to do that because we can use this tool to pay 0 taxes. Now, I mentioned it a little while ago with the UDFI. When you have a self-directed IRA and you invest in a syndication, there's going to be leverage. Typically, it's 60 or 70%. So here's what happens. If you go out and you invest your money, your retirement money, and you've got a self-directed IRA, and nothing's profitable, you're going to end up losing a third of your money. Now, some of you are thinking, well, wait, I have an IRA. I've invested it in real estate, and I haven't had any type of thing. There hasn't been any tax. That's true. because the depreciation offsets the actual income. So your net income, while it's cash flowing, is going to be probably less than $1,000 because the depreciation offset it. Well, here's the deal. If you don't have more than $1,000 in actual net income, the UDFI doesn't get triggered. But guess what happens when that property sells? And a lot of those things are selling. And that's kind of the big thing we're going to do. We're going to hold this 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then we're going to sell it. When it gets sold, you have a huge problem. It's called net profit. And you're not going to 1031 it because it's going to come back to a bunch of investors. You're going to have a problem. You're going to have this big pile of cash. You're going to have capital gains. You're going to have depreciation recapture. Ultimately, all that profit is going to be subject to UDFI. So what happens is if you've got 70% leverage, when like let's say it was a $10 million project and there was $7 million in debt when it was purchased, that's 70% leverage. That means that 70% of the profit is going to be subject to this UDFI. UDFI is like 35% tax. So you could potentially lose up to a third of your money. Guaranteed it's going to be 20, 25%. It's probably going to be closer to a third inside an IRA. And I've had people come in and they say, well, I have a Roth IRA. In fact, one client came over and said, I got this notice. My accountant said we were going to make some money on this project. It was actually just a house that they had flipped. They were going to make $58,000. And the accountant said, yeah, when you close, you're going to owe $25,000 in taxes because you had this thing leveraged. And they said, well, it's a Roth IRA. And the accountant said, yeah, but you're stuck. So we were able to fix it and adjust things and basically take them from $58,000 with a $25,000 tax bill down to zero. That's the power of getting rid of the UDFI. A lot of times people don't even know about it. You may not even know about the UDFI with your custodian or when you were setting up your multifamily. I've known syndicators that didn't realize this was going to happen. And then they're like, oh, well, shoot, sorry. But one thing that we can do is we can fix that. We can actually convert. It's called an in-kind rollover. So we move money from your self-directed IRA over to your EQRP, and all of a sudden you are not subject to that. So that's a powerful thing to do. I highly encourage you, if you have a self-directed IRA that's invested in syndications, definitely take some action and figure out if you're eligible to roll over. Because if you are, you're going to save yourself a beating when the UDFI slaps you. It's very painful. EQRP with a Roth, and by the way, you get Roth in both, or you get the Roth and you get a deferred account inside the EQRP. If it's a Roth account, you're never going to pay taxes on any of the gains, not when you're making them, not when it's leveraged, not when you pull the money out. It's literally 100% of the profit stays with you. No UDFI, totally tax-free. That's an incredibly powerful difference. UDFI, good question, by the way, is unrelated debt financed income. So if it's income like from real estate that is from debt, and so that's a good question. And it triggers something called UBIT, unrelated business income tax. That's the tax that happens. QRPs are exempt from it. EQRPs, solo 401ks are also exempt from it. So if you have one of those, you're safe in terms of that tax. But with the self-directed IRA, you are not. Now, people often ask me, well, how come? And I don't know. Why did God make gravity? Like, I don't know. And the IRS has, I can show you in the code where they did it. And it's a 401 trust exemption. It's very strange that they did that. And there's some theories about it, and you can read about that. But the reality is that's what it is. I mean, those are the rules. So we kind of just have to say, okay, those are the rules. I mean, the tax code's like 70,000 pages. And there's about 10 pages of actual taxes and then 70,000 pages of exemptions and deductions and things to encourage you to do certain things like build real estate, build housing, start businesses. The IRS does a lot of things that sometimes we don't really get. Doesn't matter if you get it necessarily. You just have to get with it so that you're not getting hammered by the things that they don't want you to do, and you're actually making money from the things that they do want you to do. I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like. So this is kind of a smaller syndication, maybe that you're involved with, a little eightplex here. And let's say that this eightplex was $1 million. You're putting this thing together. There's 3 investors. Each of them put up $100,000 and they get 25% of the deal. You get $700,000 in non-recourse debt. So if there's going to be debt for any type of real estate, it's got to be non-recourse, meaning you can't sign on it. You can't, if your retirement money is a part of a deal, you can't sign on it. if your retirement money if it's not your retirement money, you can sign on it. So in this case, we've got non-recourse debt, 700,000. And let's say you're the syndicator. So, you get 25% ownership. The other investors each get 25%. So this is kind of a common structure. And then you fix this thing up and you sell the property for $2 million. So this is good. I mean, so far, so good. Problem is, if some of your investors have self-directed IRAs, they're sitting on a ticking time bomb. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that looks like. The EQRP is not that bomb. It's actually very certain, there's control and certainty around it, meaning you're going to control your money. You're going to be certain that you're going to keep your money, and you're not going to have an event like you are about to see with the self-directed IRA. All right, with self-directed IRA, this thing sells for $2 million. $1 million in profit. That 700,000 is basically that is the 70% of the profit. So overall, you have $1 million in profit because it was 70% leveraged because of the debt. 70% of the profit is subject to this tax. UDFI takes out $245,000. So that's the loss that happens for that because of the UDFI triggering UBIT tax. With an EQRP, and you have to understand with the Roth, you're not supposed to be taxed ever. You just got taxed in your self-directed IRA. That's brutal. EQRP, all that profit is tax-free. It stays in there, it grows, and you get to pull it out tax-free too. So major difference. It's a huge difference. This is what your cash looks like if you were one of the passive investors. You put $100,000 in, and here's what you're left with: $263,000 versus $325,000. I don't think there's anybody, in fact, I'm certain there's nobody watching this that says, I want 263. Give me that one. Sign me up for less money for the same thing. No, nobody's going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. But you do it because you don't know any better. And I mean, I get it. But once you know, if you do it, you're a dum-dum. Like, that is not a good idea. Here's a better idea. Switch over to a plan that's exempt from that tax. Much better deal. Ultimately, it's $62,000. So if you're watching this and you make that one change because you have a deal, you may have just made $62,000 this morning. That's a good Saturday morning. I mean, for anybody. And then there's some other options that I briefly mentioned. This is a United States gold buffalo. It's a pretty coin. I mean, I happen to love this thing, and you can buy these things with your retirement money. You can actually hold them. So if you haven't held a gold coin, solid gold coin, there's something kind of magical. You guys maybe have heard Robert Kiyosaki talking about this, where it's like God's money. There's something, you can't just make gold up. Like, you can make dollars up, but you can't just make gold up. And once you have gold, there's something strange. It sort of attracts other wealth. And so I think everybody should have gold, whether that's 5% of your liquidity or more. You should have some. There's something important about having money that always has been money and always will be money. It's just, it's real. There's something very, very, very connected to something bigger when you're holding gold. So you can buy gold with your retirement money. You can buy it with pre-tax money, your regular EQRP money, or Roth money. Totally up to you. I think it's kind of cool to be able to buy it with pre-tax money, because I'm going to buy gold anyway. And hey, if I can get a 30 or 35% discount, that seems like a better plan. I mean, I think it's great if the government's going to help me buy some gold. I mean, that's kind of cool, right? So that's a great option. I happen to like that one a lot. It is totally private. One of the things that's important for us to understand is that there's counterparty risk. Counterparty risk means you have something and there is a risk because of some other party. We saw this a lot in 2008, where AIG was involved, and you had different banks, and basically some people had an asset. Maybe you, I know I got hit pretty hard. I had an asset and somebody else failed. Well, that was a counterparty risk. They failed and my asset went to zero or got hurt really bad. With gold, there's no counterparty risk, and it's private. So basically you hold it and nothing can happen. It's very, very, very cool. It's really one of the only things that you can use that has that available. Again, with an EQRP, you get to hold it. With a self-directed IRA, you cannot hold it. And I know that some of you have been told you can, but it's unfortunately in the code that it says you can't hold it. You have to have a depository holding it if it's a self-directed IRA. Not true with an EQRP. You're the trustee, so you get to choose where it's held, and you've got to do a good job. And so don't put it on your porch and put a sign saying, hey, gold, here, come take my gold. This is also an interesting thing where you can actually syndicate gold if you wanted to syndicate gold. Some of you are thinking about syndicating multifamily. You can syndicate anything. I have people that are syndicating royalties to books. They're syndicating, and basically that's putting investors together. You can syndicate a lot of different things. Syndicating gold may look like putting gold, piles of gold together and lending out against it. There's a lot of different things you can do. Another option with retirement money. So I know this is going to hit some of you because some of you did what I did, which is bought some extra Bitcoin back in the end of 2018. And I had some before that, but I got pretty excited and wanted to be in. So I went and bought a bunch. And so this may actually be painful because you're thinking, yeah, I'm down like 80%. All right, I apologize for that in advance, but here's what I'm thinking. Our monetary system is changing, and we don't know where it's going to end. We don't know how it's going to look in 5 or 10 years. I am willing to bet that it's going to look different. And I don't want to show up one day and go, oh man, it changed. I missed the entire process and I better figure out what to do now. So I think every one of us should be aware and engaged. So if you don't have Bitcoin, I think it's important to get a little Bitcoin. It might be $50, might be 5,000, enough for you to actually pay attention. This is something, it's something that your retirement account can purchase. A lot of clients are purchasing this. And I like it because it's private. There's no banks. I happen to think that that's important, where you actually control your stuff, and and the privacy is important. Even though I know Facebook is disclosing everything about everybody to everybody, I think that there's an important value in privacy. With the QRP, when you're investing and you're trading, we know that Bitcoin, if you're buying any crypto and then you sell it, the tax consequences can be very, very bad. There's a big argument with the IRS and the SEC and like, what is it? Is it currency? Is it an asset? Is it personal property? Like, nobody seems to know. What we do know is that the tax issue is going to be a thumping. And you can take yourself out of that if you're using a tax shelter like a retirement account where you're buying and trading and doing what you're going to do with it. You're eliminating all those type of taxes, assuming that you made money. That can be important. I think a lot of people are having some serious tax events and they didn't realize that there was another way. This could be a way for you to avoid that if you're interested in the crypto space. And the other thing is it's a lot more efficient. I mean, you can move this money between borders. I know that there have been people like the Winklevosses that have moved $1 billion worth of Bitcoin basically in their head because you control your stuff with a code. This may be beyond the scope of what you're even aware of, but you could move across the border and it's, if you have $10,000 in cash, you have to write a report and you may have it taken from you by the Customs and Border Patrol people. If you get $1 billion of Bitcoin or even 100,000, you just walk across. It's basically intellectual property. Kind of awesome to have that flexibility and that, just the ability to move freely. I mean, I'm a big proponent of freedom, and this is a great option. Again, retirement money can be used to purchase this, and it may be another tool, another asset that you want to add into your pile. I mentioned the credit line, and I think it's good to reinforce this and talk about it a little bit more, because if you are in a situation where you have something you want to do, for example, like you want to go get training, and there's a lot of great trainings out there right now for investing. There's a lot of mentoring, a lot of coaching, a lot of programs that may be $5, $10, $15, $20,000. And you go, well, that's great, except my money's tied up in my 401k or my IRA. If you have access to that money, I can tell you right now that there's no greater investment that you'll ever make, bar none, that's better than you investing in you. So there's an event that a bunch of us go to each year. It's called the Summit at Sea. The real estate guys put it on, and it's there's an investment. It's about $10,000, $12,000 that it's going to cost to go. That is a great opportunity to invest and borrow from your plan. You borrow this money, you pay it back over 5 years, which is how long you have to pay it back. You have 5 years to pay it back, and you can expand your thinking. You can expand your network. This is more valuable than anything you'll ever invest in real estate wise, the investment in yourself. That's why you're here right now, right? You're here to invest in yourself, your personal development. It's the first place you should invest, and you're doing great by being here. This gives you access to cash to help you fuel that. And if you are trying to figure out how you're going to afford a mentor, a training program, a seminar, the summit, you literally might be staring at a pile of cash that you didn't even realize you could use, but now you can use it. I would encourage you to think about that and potentially use it for that type of investment. So who's qualified for the EQRP. Syndicators that are out there doing something outside of a W-2 job. If you self-employed people, investors, your grandma can go open up a small business like a lemonade stand, or she could sell, she could create some knitting stuff. I don't know if grandmas knit. I'm not sure. Maybe I have to ask my grandma. They can go do things as long as you've got some activity. It's activity. It's business activity. You don't have to have a big company. You don't even have to have income. What you have to have is activity. It's a business is activity. It's kind of like having the difference between a business and a hobby. Is a hobby something that it kind of converts from a hobby to a business when you have the ability to make income? So you've got to have something that is creating some type of activity. Okay, some business activity. All right, and then let's see if there's another question here. We got Skylar asked, why did the IRS approve the EQRP? Why? I don't know. It's because it qualifies. It's because it's written to their code. So the IRS gives guidelines, and then you submit your plan, and then they say, yes, it's approved, or no, it's not. The IRS approves what they want to approve. They approved it because it falls within their guidelines. So if it falls within their guidelines, most of the government functions, if you do and you play by their rules, then you don't have a problem. If you try to be overly creative, they don't like that oftentimes. So when you fall within their rules and you have them bless whatever it is you're doing, then you're good to go. And that's what we have here. Skylar also asked, if you're borrowing from your own EQRP and now you have 5 years to pay it back, how does that interest work? Good question. So you choose your interest rate, and the IRS says it needs to be a normal and ordinary interest rate. Okay, so what does that mean? You pick. I mean, I've seen interest rates that are 1%, 2%, 3%. I've seen interest rates that are 10 or 12%. If you can find an example of an ordinary and normal interest rate, then you're in business. If you say, I'm going to charge myself 60% and you're going to try to jack up a lot of cash into your plan from that interest, you're going to have a hard time defending that. If you say it's going to be 1%, that's an interesting thing that you can probably find an example for. I don't think I would do that. So if you're going to be overly creative, go and have your accountant back you up. Typical, most common is prime plus 1. You pay the interest into your plan. It's basically additional contributions that are going in there outside of your normal contributions. And then you just pay it back over 5 years, and it's an amortized payment process. So you borrow $50,000, you're going to pay equal payments either quarterly or monthly. You get to choose, and then it's due back in the 5 years. And you can't do a balloon payment. Okay, so it has to be amortized, and then you can borrow as often as you want. You just have to. There are rules about borrowing and then paying back and then borrowing again. Basically, the IRS doesn't want you to use this as an in and out every day or every week. So there are some limitations. But basically, if you borrowed $50,000 today, paid it back tomorrow, 12 months from now, you could borrow another $50,000. So you can keep recycling it. That's definitely up to you. All right, let's see what else we've got. Any other questions that are floating around here? Let's see. One of the questions was, how do you deem a property as over-leveraged? I don't know if that was a question for this or not, but really there's no rules around leveraged. It just, the leverage is leverage. If you have leverage in an EQRP versus a self-directed IRA, there's no UDFI with the EQRP. There is with the self-directed IRA. So ultimately, that's the important thing, that you're exempt from it. All right. And Skylar wants to confirm that interest rate, the interest it counts as additional contributions. It doesn't count towards your contribution limit. What it does is it basically adds more to your account, and it's almost like a backdoor way to get additional money into it. So it allows you to get more juice into your plan. But it doesn't restrict you. So right now, the limits for contributions are $56,000 per year per person, up to $62,000 if you're over age 50, the catch-up contributions. So if there's 2 people in a household, you're somewhere between $112,000 and $124,000, and the interest is in addition to that. Yeah, it's dope. It's kind of awesome, and it's sort of funny because it's a lot more than an IRA that's $5,000 or $6,000. Like, man, you put $5,000 in something for 20 years, you're going to be just old and broke. Not going to get you anywhere. But this can actually juice up your vision for your life if you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in there. All right, so things that are prohibited. There are things that are prohibited. You cannot put property you already own inside your retirement account. So like if you have a rental property or you've got something that, like some gold, you can't just put it in your plan. it has to be new property that you're acquiring or property that's already owned by a retirement account that you currently have in place. So like your self-directed IRA, if it has property, that property can all be transferred in. It's called an in-kind rollover. That can be rolled over into your EQRP. So cool option. You just can't put in stuff you already have outside of a retirement account. And anything that you're using now. So if you buy an investment with your retirement account, like you buy a ocean house or something, beach house, and you go over there and spend the summers, it's called disqualified. It's prohibited. You will disqualify your account. And so people go, well, how are they going to know? I have no idea. But what I do know is that you're breaking the rules, and getting audited, it's going to come out. So just expect to get hammered in an audit. Don't expect that you're going to get away with it. And some of you guys are going to be like, well, nobody's going to find out. It's somewhere else. Y'all have to figure out how you can sleep at night. I mean, I want to know that I can show everything to an IRS auditor and I'm going to feel fine. And so I don't worry about whether or not I'm going to lose my retirement account. Make sure you have an accountant and an attorney that's part of your team too. Somebody like Kevin Day, Tom Wheelwright, Garrett Sutton, like these people, Craig Cody, all these people can help you stay in between the lines. We do that too with compliance. If you tell me what you're going to invest in, it's black and white to me. I'll tell you, yep, disqualified or totally fine. So just be careful about using. It's called present use. So nothing that you're investing in can be used today. Okay, so it has to be something for the future. This is your future pile. Sometimes people say, well, if I'm investing and I've got some cash flow from a rental property, my retirement account is investing. And then the question is, what about the cash flow? And I say, well, it's not your cash flow, it's your retirement accounts. And they go, well, I want to be able to spend it. And I go, well, this is not yours. It's your future you. It's like, you from 2037, when you're 59 and a half. So just keep in mind, this is your future stuff. Other than that $50,000 that you can borrow, which you can do anything you want with. You can buy another property and actually spend the money. But investments your retirement account makes are meant for your future. They're not meant for today. One thing that is an option, which is kind of cool, is future land or future beach house. So remember that beach house I just talked about? I said you can't go and spend the summers there. Here's what you could do. You could buy the thing, have it rented out, and then let's say there's debt on it. It's always nice. And the debt gets paid down. And then you're 59 and a half and you go, hey, you know what? I want to distribute that asset to me. I want to go live in it. Cool. And if it's a Roth asset, you just go move in. No tax event. Literally move in. You just moved into your retirement account, your retirement house that a renter paid for you inside of that plan. I mean, that you've got options with this money for setting yourself up to actually use it. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. Future land, you can just buy land, speculate, have that land sitting there waiting for you until you're 59 and a half and then go use it. Also very cool. Let me answer a couple questions, Chris. Something about prohibited folks you can work with. Do the same rules apply for the lineal chain and family, kids, parents? Yeah, so basically anything vertical, no-nos. Sideways, totally fine. Brothers, sisters, that's cool. You can invest with those people. Your retirement account can invest with them. Their retirement account could invest with you. But people that are up and down, kids, parents, grandparents, disqualified, cannot invest your retirement account with mom or dad. Or they can't have their retirement account invested with you. So just keep that in mind. There are very straightforward rules, and you guys can always reach out and I can give you a graphic that shows you who's allowed, who's not allowed. Same with the disqualified investments, what you can and can't do, the rugs, the coins, the cars, all that kind of stuff. And then the other question was, can I roll over a self-directed IRA account with Checkbook LLC? Absolutely. Any traditional self-directed IRA can be rolled over so that you're out of the UDFI. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter if it's Checkbook LLC. It doesn't matter if you've got properties in it. A lot of times people go, oh, I'm already stuck. I'm already invested. No, you can roll the whole thing over. It's called an in-kind rollover. So you're not stuck unless you want to be stuck. But you can move the stuff over. It's totally up to you. That gives you the ability to opt out of the UDFI, opt out of all the AUM fees, the assets under management. It takes all the transaction fees away, all that kind of stuff. Big advantage to move it out once you know about it. Right. So how do you get money into this thing? Rollovers. Anything that you've got, any IRA, 401k, TSP, it's thrift savings plans. This is like if you're a government employee, FAA. Actually, right now, I don't even know if anybody's working, but you know what? You do have a TSP probably, and you can roll those over. 403Bs, if you're a teacher, 457s, firefighter, like these different things. All these things can be rolled over. Now, one of the things that people ask, they say, well, I'm still working. Can I roll it over? And the answer is maybe. Once you leave, you can definitely roll it over. While you're still there, it's possible. And what you need to do is go to your current administrator of your plan and ask if they have an in-service rollover option. It means while you're still in service, you can roll the funds over. That's just a question you have to ask because there's no blanket answer, and it's up to them. So if they say yes, then you can roll the money, and it's tax-free, penalty-free. These transfers are tax-free, penalty-free into an EQRP. You can do that anytime you want if they'll allow it, or when you leave that job, you can roll them over. There's no limit to how many times and how many different sources you can transfer in. If you have a bunch of orphan IRAs, old 401ks, you can just consolidate them, simplify them, pile them up, put them in one place. That's very cool. Contributions. So maybe you don't have any money as a rollover, or maybe you want to add more, up to $62,000 a year. Now, if you're age 50, if you're less than 50, then 56,000. So it's still a ton. And this can be deferred money or Roth or a combination of both. So you choose, do you want to pay taxes now or later? One strategy that is available in the real estate space is contribute money that's deferred. So you get the tax write-off now, and then you can convert it to Roth. Now, when you convert it, that money gets added into your active income for the next time you do your tax return. Something very, very cool that happened about a year ago was the Tax Reform Act, and that included bonus depreciation. So if you're a tax professional, or if you're a real estate professional, you're able to take your income, your active income, and you can offset it with bonus depreciation. So if you go buy a piece of property and you have bonus depreciation of a few $100,000 because you bought $1 million building, and then you had active income, including rollover money transfer from deferred to Roth. Let's say you rolled over $300,000 from deferred money to Roth money. Well, that's going to be $300,000 in active income that gets added to your tax return. What if you bought a building that had $300,000 in losses? All of a sudden, you have no tax event, and all of your money just became Roth. You want to talk about $1 million idea? That's amazing. Thank you, Congress and Donald Trump. Like, wow. So that's a great strategy to talk with an accountant about. If you don't have an accountant, go get one that understands this stuff, because if they don't understand it, they're literally costing you money. All right. Question. Do you need a typical custodian? You do not need a custodian here. With an EQRP, you are the trustee. Trustee and custodian, basically the same thing. They're the ones that are controlling assets. They're the ones that are kind of like holding. Well, if you're the trustee, you're holding your own stuff. So do you need a typical custodian? No, that's kind of the point. You're in charge. You get to control your stuff. I mean, that's pretty awesome. All right. EQRP versus self-directed IRA. Ultimately, we're talking about a 10 times difference in contributions. You can put 10 times as much stuff in. I mean, let's just bottom line say that's $1 million over the next 20 years versus 100,000. You're just not going to get rich with $100,000 put into an account. You're just going to be old and broke. You have 10 times the control. So there's no custodian. You're the trustee. You control. You do what you'd like to. No UDFI. This is the biggest thing with real estate because of the leverage. You don't want to be losing 20 to 35% of your returns when you do a good deal and it's inside the wrong vehicle. If it's in a self-directed IRA, you're just going to get hammered. If it's inside of another vehicle, whether it's an EQRP or a solo K or a solo 401k, all of those are exempt from the UDFI. Make sure you're not in something where you're going to lose a third of your money. That's the first step. And then make sure that that you have the right type of QRP that actually has liability protection. EQRP does, and that's one of the things that makes it incredibly valuable, and it's much different than a solo 401k. It actually has liability protection baked in. It's a big difference. And if you've ever been sued, you realize the value of liability protection. Tenants sue, people sue because they stub their toe and they think it's your fault. So just keep that in mind. If it hadn't happened, it's going to happen. If it hasn't happened, it's probably going to happen again. The Roth. Just hit on this for a minute because the Roth came into existence because of William Roth, Delaware senator, years ago. And it's interesting because back in the late 90s, there was a huge thing called a government surplus. And everybody said, oh, government's so smart. They balanced the budget. Bill Clinton was like this genius with the Republicans and blah, blah, blah. It's not true. What happened is they said, let's do this Roth thing. And so everybody said, cool. Rich people, like, by the way, Mitt Romney has like $100 million in his Roth account. they said, let's convert our stuff to Roth, pay the taxes now, and then when we pull the money out down the road, no tax. That was a huge boom in income for the federal government. They got all this income from the tax from that conversion that they would have normally got in 2020, 2030. It happened way earlier. So all of a sudden, the Treasury swelled with income. That was a big part of why there was a surplus. It wasn't because we had brilliant Congress people. I mean, that give me a break. It was because the Roth component. The Roth is what the rich are using when they're using retirement accounts. I mean, Mitt Romney is not stupid. The guy, Senator Romney, I guess. And it's not only that he's got this money that he's not paying taxes on. When you have a Roth account and somebody inherits it, when you die, they get the Roth account and they get to spend it and or grow it the rest of their lives. So if you think about it, let's say you start a Roth account when you're 40 years old, and then you have it until you're 90. You've got it for 50 years and tax-free growth, tax-free spending. And then somebody else inherits it, and it's like, a grandkid or somebody, and they're 25 years old, and they last 75 years. This thing may be growing and spending like tax-free for 100 plus years. That's the power of using the Roth with the right vehicle. You can actually set your family up to go to that zero. That zero number we're talking about, zero tax, where you actually keep your money. That's what's available here. You can also set this up if you were to talk to your parents, grandparents, folks like that. It's a great conversation, because I think most families are interested in helping each other. And so if you say, hey, I want to set something up for you, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, and then you're helping to give them a way to put money into it. It's Roth. And by the way, there's no age restriction. With IRAs, there are restrictions on when you can do it, how much you can put in, how much income you can have. With qualified retirement plans, the QRPs, the EQRPs, there's no age limit. Doesn't matter how much income you make. So you can be a high paid doctor making $500,000 a year and absolutely fund the heck out of this thing. You can have it all Roth. There's a limit with IRAs on being able to do that. All those choices and options are inside the EQRP. So you can start setting yourself up to inherit something because everybody's going to die. And this is a way for families to start making better choices around their tax planning. I mean, there's a reason that the wealthy don't pay taxes, or they pay very little, because they actually use the code. The thing is, the code's available for all of us. And this is one of the pieces to it that you can take advantage of if you're willing to invest the time and talk to the right people that actually know, guys like Tom Wheelwright and Craig Cody. And there's a lot of great accountants out there. I just know these guys know their stuff. And I would encourage you to make sure you have those conversations with them and take advantage of these things. The code is written for you to take advantage of. It's on purpose. It's an incentive program to get you to take action. So that's kind of the end of this stuff. I wrote a book on the QRP that you can get a copy of if you want to get a copy of it. It's on Amazon. There's a guide. It's basically the Cliff Notes, because I don't know who reads anymore. Not very many people. But if you want a copy of the guide, it'll sum up the book in about 8 or 9 pages, and you just text the word QRP to the number 72,000. So like if you were going to type a phone number, and that's where you put 72,000, and then put the word QRP. So that will give you a Cliff Notes version of the book. The book is going to be a great reference manual. It's called the QRP book. You can get it on Amazon. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me anytime at Total Control Financial. I am definitely here for, I don't know how long we have. I'm not even sure what time it is, but do have time for questions. And from Holly.
Got about 15 more minutes.
All right, awesome. So we have time for some questions. Holly, can you roll over an IRA to a Roth and take the gains to invest in an opportunity zone and avoid taxes? So you can convert IRAs to, if it's a traditional IRA, you can convert them to Roths depending on your income. Here's the better strategy. Do a transfer from an IRA to an EQRP, and then once it's there, convert to Roth, because you can't move a Roth IRA over to a qualified plan. It's the one thing. So you guys, this is really important. If you have a Roth IRA, it's stuck. So you don't want to get yourself stuck. So if you've got an IRA and you're thinking, oh, I want it to be a Roth, great, but don't do it yet. Convert it over to a QRP and then it's called an in-plan rollover from a traditional to a Roth. So that way you can get your money into Roth. But if you convert it to a Roth IRA, it's stuck. And then you're always going to be stuck with the UDFI. So oftentimes people, they just make too much money, so they can't do anything. They can't do the Roth. Well, with an EQRP, you're totally set, because there is no income limit. it's available for everybody. So it's a great tool, especially when you start making too much money. I know it's a rough problem, but it's a problem. And so this solves that problem. In terms of opportunity zones, that's a great question for people. This is so new that we're still trying to figure that stuff out. So I don't even have any good information on that. I'm still figuring out opportunity zones. I would highly encourage you to connect with people like the top accountants that are digging into this space with the opportunity zones and take advantage of those. Whether or not that's going to be useful with your retirement account. One thing that Tom Wheelwright says in Tax-Free Wealth, which if you haven't read it, by the way, totally read that. He says you should not use a tax shelter and put it inside a tax shelter. And so there are certain things like, for example, and here's a reason why you don't want to use an EQRP. If you buy for a certain asset, if you want to go buy rental property, a rental income property, and you're going to keep it for the next 40 years, I don't think it's a good idea to put it inside of a retirement account because you lose the depreciation. And so I would keep that outside of a retirement account. The real estate that I would put inside of a retirement account is the stuff where you're going to have like a syndication exit event, where you're going to have a big pile of capital gains in 3 or 4 or 5 years. Something like that is valuable because you can shelter all that income tax or the capital gains or the recapture. You can shelter all that stuff by keeping the profits inside the plan. But because you are going to lose the depreciation inside of a plan. But remember, if you're going to sell a property, all the depreciation gets hammered back with the depreciation recapture. So there are certain things you should put in, certain things you shouldn't put in. I think that there's the tax code right now is really set up for us to invest in real estate. And so if we're going to put real estate inside of a retirement plan, inside of an EQRP, make sure it's the type that you're actually it's smart to put in there. Don't put long-term residual income producing type of property in there because you're going to lose all the depreciation forever. So I don't think that that's the smartest thing. Let's see. Question: how do you convert an existing profit sharing plan to a Roth? It's inside the plan. So the plan, every profit sharing plan, cash balance plan, every one of these plans is a trust, and it has guidelines for what can and can't be done. If it allows an in-service conversion, then you can do it. Like ours, the EQRP is built with that inside. You just have to ask if you have one already. Just ask if your plan has one. They can also be changed, so you could amend the plan if you actually already have one. So some of you have one, you just need to have whoever wrote it change the plan, and that can be done with pretty much anything, with any plan. Who's the author of the tax-free book? His name is Tom Wheelwright. He's one of the Rich Dad advisors. It's called Tax-Free Wealth. And if you haven't, he just updated it after the tax code changes back in December of 2017. So it was updated in 2018. Excellent book, probably the best book I've read on tax strategy and just the overall tax code that exists out there. And Tom's great. So I would encourage everybody to read that book. Unless you love paying taxes, then don't waste your time. Just keep writing checks to the government. Let's see. If I convert a 401k to an EQRP, then convert to Roth, is that subject to tax? Yeah, when you convert deferred money to Roth, you're basically saying it's pre-tax to post-tax. So you're converting it. And keep in mind the thing I said earlier, that if you're converting that and you trigger that taxable amount and you have bonus depreciation that you can offset it, that bonus depreciation is an expense. And if you can offset income with an expense, then you could potentially pay zero. This is why becoming a real estate professional may make a lot of sense for some of you guys, because you can actually apply the phantom losses, the expense depreciation against this conversion. And then now all your money is Roth. Pretty smart idea. So definitely consider that. And let's see, who else we got here? Any other questions answered?
Got one in the chat box.
Chat box. Where are we at? Chat box.
From Holly.
From Holly. Can you roll an IRA to a Roth and take the gains? Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah, so if you definitely can convert an IRA to a Roth. Again, it's not a good idea to convert it to a Roth inside the IRA because then it's stuck. You want to really move it. The strategy would be to move it from an IRA, which is deferred IRA, to an EQRP, and then once it's an EQRP, then convert it to a Roth, because the EQRP has the in-plan rollover option built in, so you can convert any deferred money into Roth, and you can convert part of it, all of it. There's also a stair-stepping process, meaning if you, let's say you had $500,000 that you wanted to convert to Roth, you can do $100,000 a year and limit the amount of additional income tax you're going to pay for the conversion, and you're paying it in the following year. So if you did it today, which is January, you're not going to pay the income tax. The income tax is due when you're paying your your income tax you file the next time you file. So you do have some time, but you're just stuck if you do it inside the IRA because you can't move it out of the IRA. And if you want to do syndications, then you're really screwed. So be careful about converting to a Roth IRA inside, before you don't do it is my opinion, my suggestion. All right. And let's see. Other questions? Brandon, do we have anybody else here?
Yeah, you got three more in the Q&A. One question is, how do you get a copy of the presentation deck? And that is, all the videos for these are being recorded, and you get those in the forum, mfinforum.com. And these are also on the Summit private Facebook group for attendees. So we're doing Facebook Live videos of these, so you can go back and check those out.
All right. And so you guys can get a copy of this by going there and explain more why a solo 401k is that. I'm not sure if there's more of the question. Dean, if you want to add a little bit more to your question, I'm happy to answer that. Gary, what are the bare minimum to become a real estate professional? I'm a full-time working and manage my multifamily unit as a side job. There are certain numbers of hours and certain things that you have to do. So you can read it in the code. I'm not an expert in that space. In fact, I've got accountants and CPAs that are helping me do exactly that. So since I have businesses and things, I need to make sure I'm very, very careful and I totally qualify. So it is a time thing. You can't just say, I'm a real estate professional. Like that doesn't work because there's major advantages to it. So it might be a real estate license. It's going to be a certain amount of time. Get a tax professional that's going to guide you through that. That is not me. And that is somebody like Tom or Craig or there's a lot of people out there that can guide you. Just make sure you get professional guidance because if you're wrong, you're toast. If you're right, you're just going to be out of the tax game. You're not going to be paying taxes. So anyways, get professional help on that one. Who would you recommend for syndication accounting? Two people that are my favorites, Tom Wheelwright and Craig Cody. And I can introduce anybody that wants to reach out to me. I can introduce you to them. You can also find them both on the internet. Both of them are excellent, smart, at the edge, meaning they're out there figuring stuff out. It's amazing to me how many people are in the accounting game and they don't actually keep up to date with what's going on. Like I feel like I've studied more accounting in the last year than most accountants. They just sort of go on idle mode. So make sure you find somebody that knows what's happening. And those two guys I know are deep into it. And so they can give you real world, up-to-date, accurate information. Whoever you're using, if they don't know what a qualified retirement plan is, if they don't know what bonus depreciation is, my suggestion, fire them. Go find somebody that can help you reduce or eliminate your taxes and pay what it is you need to pay. So advice is always, there's a saying I have called, shoot, now I'm forgetting it. Basically, cheap objects are expensive, okay? So if you get cheap advice, if you get free advice, it's going to be very expensive. You're going to be paying a lot of taxes. So what is the advantage of utilizing an EQRP in the first place when you can already depreciate your rental income? James, great question. And if you have long-term rental income, meaning you have property that's good, you're going to keep long-term, then that is not property that you'd want to put into a retirement account. It's real estate that you're not going to have that. So you wouldn't put a tax shelter inside of a tax shelter. Real estate, long-term rental property is a tax shelter. And so I completely agree that, and with Tom, and Tom says, yeah, this is a terrible idea if you're going to have long-term, but syndications, multifamily that you're going to buy and then sell over a few years, that's a great thing to put inside here because you are going to have a tax problem, but you can avoid it with an EQRP. So great question, James, and I totally agree with you. And then Mitch, I'm happy to send you, connect with you with your email that you sent me over there. And then Brandon, you were going to answer something? Oh, no. Okay.
No, I was just clearing out some of the questions there in the question and answer box. So great questions from everybody watching and great presentation. Damion, I know you've definitely piqued the curiosity of a lot of people that have never really talked about this subject before and didn't really realize those little tax secrets that nobody knew about and get kind of nailed on that. So that I learned something new on that one. So thank you for sharing that with us. And again, if you, how can folks get in touch with you again?
The best thing to do is text the word QRP to 72,000 and it's going to give you the report. It's also going to connect you. And then you can always find me at totalcontrolfinancial.com. So if you want to go that direction and reach out to us, I think the best place is say, okay, this is a lot of information. and let's boil it down so I get my arms around it. And so get that report. I mean, that's really going to be valuable. It goes to your phone and you'll get all hooked up with the Cliff Notes.
Do you want to type your web address in the chat box so people can just link to that?
Yeah, for sure.
It should create the hot link once you type it in. But again, reach out, follow back up with Damion. He's got a wealth of knowledge, and definitely in this area. So follow back up with him. Great advice on getting an accountant who knows the space that you're in, because not all accountants are. I say accountant, but they're not all created equal. CPAs are, they range. I've talked to CPAs who have no idea about multifamily or different retirement accounts like this, and you're just like, and you do this for a living? So, you definitely have to vet them. I've heard many people say that you need professionals on your team who invest in the same space that you do. So look for CPAs that also invest in multifamily so they understand where you're coming from.
I think that's one of the best things. I always like to ask financial advisors, who are basically mostly financial salespeople, if I can see their balance sheet. And they kind of cringe, and sometimes they'll say, "Yeah, look at all the life insurance, or look at all the stocks I have." And I go, "Okay, so where are you making your money? In the selling of the stuff, or in the actual thing?" And they don't really say anything. So people like Greg or Tom would say, "Oh yeah, I've got all this property." It's like, okay, you're probably making more money in your property than you are selling your advice. So
exactly,
great suggestion.
Exactly. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing everything. Thanks for being with us this morning and providing all this great content to everybody. If anybody has any more questions, be sure to jump over to the forum, check that out. Also, the videos will be there posted. And again, thanks, Damion, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being with us this morning for that session, and a lot of information there. And coming up, just a reminder, we have a great panel coming up in the next session. We got a 15-minute break. Well, a little bit more than that, about 18 minutes break. And we're going to have tales of getting started in real estate. We got some great speakers, some that I've worked with personally. We have Gail Grenzig. We have Holly Williams. We have Evan Holiday and Justin Grimes going to share their tales of getting started in real estate. So I know you're going to enjoy that. Earlier in a discussion, we had some talk about, I need teaching, and somebody made a comment, and it was a little bit off comment about, less storytelling and more teaching. What you get out of something is how much you're paying attention. So in storytelling, when people are telling their stories, they are teaching you. A lot of times you just need to pay attention to what they're saying to you. So learn from these people's stories and how they got started in real estate, and especially if you're getting ready to get started, and you might learn some things that you don't want to do, or maybe some things that you do want to do. So stick with us. Come back in about 15 minutes in room 2. To hear that panel, Tales of Getting Started in Real Estate.